Yo, what's good? Big Z here, and today I'm going to show you guys how I made my new single called Together. If you haven't heard it yet, here's what it sounds like.
I could spend forever, I could spend forever, you and me together.
So I'm just going to walk through the track from the beginning and show you guys how I made everything.
I've been thinking, why don't we give it a shot? Give it a shot.
So first up are these arps. So there's 3 different arps right here. But together they work well. And they're actually, all 3 of them are just Nexus presets, because Nexus has a lot of good bell sounds. So I use Nexus to find these bell sounds. First one is Shiny Bell 4. Second one is Shiny Bell 1. And then the third one is Soft Marimba. So I don't know what expansion pack these are in, but I found them in Nexus and they just worked well for these ARP sounds, just to create a nice atmosphere to set a mood for the chords when they come in. So here's what the chords sound like that are playing throughout the whole verse. So what I did is play an electric piano sample. I think it was from Contact. I'm not positive though. And then I reversed it. So before I reversed it, it sounded like this. And then I added this effect called Scanner Vibrato, which works well for like electric piano sounds. Just gives it some movement in the stereo field. And then what I did is just reverse those chords.
Give it a shot. I've been drinking, so are you ready or not? Ready or not? If you're a drink, then bottom.
Here's this arpeggio sound I use in a lot of different songs. And that is just another Nexus preset, just a random one called Be Free. It's just like a pluck sound. Here's what it sounds like without the arpeggio on it and all these effects. But then once I add the Logic arpeggiator on there, and then I add some EQ, some delay, compression, reverb, tremolo, bit crusher, and a little bit of kickstart, it sounds like this. I try to add that sound in a lot of songs just because I think it's a really cool sound. So in this next part, I just introduce an 808 and like a lush pad sound and a lot of new drum samples just to make the drum beat a lot more exciting.
If you're a drink, then bottoms up. And your reflection's brilliant. We stay in.
The 808 is just like a splice sample I got. It's probably like a Lex Luger 808 or something standard like that. The pad sound is just 2 saw waves in Serum, just with a good amount of detune, some chorus and phaser and dimension expander on there.
Reflections brilliant. We staying up all night. I've been popping bottles, making sparks ignite. I could spend forever.
So this pluck is 2 layers. The first layer is just a Serum layer. It's a pluck I made that I use a lot. It's just a standard saw pluck. There's really not much going on. Just have this envelope kind of modulating the detune a little bit to make it more interesting. And I added a formant filter too to make it a little more interesting. And then on top of that, I have this tropical pluck from Nexus that I layered with that saw pluck. The preset was just called Clicky Signs. I just added some ping pong delay and some chorus on there.
I've been popping bottles, making sparks ignite. I could spend forever with you by my side. I could spend forever. I could spend forever. You and me together.
So I'll start with those huge chords in the drop. Here's what they sound like by themselves. So in Serum, I just used two different saw waves to make these chords. Oscillator B is an octave up from oscillator A. Oscillator A is 7 voices unison, oscillator B is 6, and they're both detuned the same amount. Then I've got this envelope here that is just modulating the cutoff of the filter and also the bright white noise from the noise oscillator that's adding a lot of high end to the sound. So that really helps the chords cut through the mix. Over in the effects section, I just have some dimension expander, some phaser, chorus, and a formant filter. So before the effects, so those effects aren't doing a whole lot, but it's just adding some character and making the sound more interesting. Then for external processing on this, I have a bunch of bit crusher. Then I just have a couple EQs and some OTT and just some like filters so I can automate it throughout the track. So I'm sending these chords to a reverb bus down here, and what I'm doing is automating the gain of that reverb so it kind of fades in after the chords stop playing. So you can see my automation edits down here, and you can kind of hear the reverb fade back in when you see this ramp up right here. That just helps add a lot of movement and life to the song and just help the song kind of breathe a little bit.
Me together.
If I take the saw chords out, it is just the bass, really. This is almost the same bass I used in my last single, Alive. It's just a patch I made in Serum that I like a lot. It's just a saw wave, and it's just a really clicky kind of saw bass. And that's because I'm automating the pitch right here with envelope 3. Also, to add a little more attack and a high-end crunch to the bass, I'm using this LFO to affect this AC hum 1 noise over here. And that's really how I get the bass to sound so crispy and tight. For effects in Serum, I just have a formant filter and some tube distortion on there, but then I have a bunch of external processing just to make it fit in the mix better. I have the CLA bass plugin adding some compression, distortion, chorus. I've got this EQ, just cutting out some of the mids, kind of rolling them down. Then I've got this multi-band compressor, and I'll show you what it sounds like with and without the multi-band compressor. I just had to kind of reduce some sections, and I used an expander on the high end just to make it fit in the mix more. And usually I would have a separate sub bass separate from this bass, but I just used this multi-band compressor to get the sub to the level I wanted using this band down here. Other than that, the only thing that's going on in the drop is this brass hit right here. It's kind of like a loud luxury style brass hit. And that is just the Nexus preset called Big Brass, I think. Yeah, it's called Big Brass. And I just added a ton of processing to it just to make it fit in the mix more, because it's like a really heavy preset to begin with. Here's what it sounds like. But I just wanted it to be really subtle in the mix. I guess I went kind of wild with the processing on this one, but I just added some CLA bass to like shape the EQ of the sound, compress it, add distortion and chorus. Here's the EQ I have on it. I added some OTT. I added some kickstart, so it would really just get out of the way of the kick and be really heavily sidechained. I added a little bit of bit crusher. I added a transient designer so the transients would pop more on the notes where the kick wasn't in the way. Then I added another EQ just to kind of shape the low end a little bit more. Then I added some sample delay using the Haas effect to make it appear wider than it really is, so it hits your left ear before the right ear. And then I just have like a filter on there and some gain so I can automate it throughout the track. Alright, so the rest of the track is kind of just variations on what I already showed you, so I don't really need to show you any more than that, but hopefully this was interesting to some of you guys. I'll go ahead and play the drop again at the end of the video. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Spotify below, and other than that, I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Could spend forever, you and me together.